Hi everyone, it's David from Automotive Press. You can't believe how excited I am because I'm in front of my favorite vehicles, the all-new 2025 6th generation 4Runner. As you know, I've been talking about the 4Runner for the last 2 or 3 years, making all kinds of predictions, and some of those things have become true. So yes, it is built in Japan at the Tahara plant, and I plan to go there in a couple of months or so. And it's a beautiful plant designed to build some of the best vehicles in the world, including the 4Runner, but also Land Cruiser 250 series. The GX is built there along with many other Lexus models. So a really amazing plant. So they're built in Japan, and then they have the sliding rear window, which is another iconic feature. But there are more things I want to show you about 4Runner. So let me walk you through and see how many things I can point out that is a unique part of the 4Runner now that it is all new for 2025. Let's start with Trail Hunter here. And right off the bat, I'm going to do my usual audit for the quality control. These are all pre-production models or prototypes, so don't expect the quality control or quality checks to be exactly the same when the full production model shows up. Hey, but we still get a good feel for it. So the gap here is 3 millimeter here and 2.8 millimeters. So when I measured the 4Runner that I owned, I think you guys remember that I owned many different iterations, most recently at 2021. It was exactly 3 millimeter here, and this one over here as well is 3.5, 3.5, and 3.6 millimeters. So the gaps are absolutely right up there with all the cars that are built in Tahara, about the same, and maybe a little bit better even than the 5th gen 4Runner that I owned, because that one had a bigger gap along here and a little bit more here too. The gas caps also line up really well. For a prototype, this thing has an incredible quality. And then let's do a quick paint check on this side where we can see a little bit better. I love this new Everest green, by the way. It's just called Everest, I think, for color. Lots of flakes, good metallic, really good clear coat, and you know what? Almost no orange peel. So oftentimes in really good metallic paint, you don't actually see much orange peel, as it is the case with this. Now let's take a look at the limited model of the 4Runner, which has the Heritage Blue, another beautiful color and very iconic color as well. Another prototype. Let's check the quality one more time. Exactly the same, 3 millimeter, 2.9. So identical to the Trail Hunter there, 3.8 millimeter there, and 3.5. So a little bit different, but pretty close. 3.6, more or less the same between the Trail Hunter and this one, both pre-production models. And the paint job, of course, this is non-metallic, also really consistent. Not as deep in terms of the look because it's not a metallic paint, but look how flush the fuel cap is. I can't even touch it, it's so hot in here. Beautiful paint job, and all of the other components, like the plastic parts here, well made, everything fits well, especially for a prototype. I'm not too crazy about these chrome emblems, but nevertheless they fit well within this section here, and the 4Runner is also done properly. So no issue with the quality in terms of exterior. Let's take a quick look inside. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out, is the exterior quality. Second thing I want to point out is that almost exactly like a Tacoma interior, so no surprise. But you can see that there's no gap, everything fits well. Some of the plastic do not look like a production ready yet, but this is soft. Also you get soft here, a little bit hard plastic. But if I do my punch test, nothing is loose. Everything feels solid so far. There's some movement here, but that's okay. And the stitching looks good. So as you would expect for cars built in Tahara plant in Japan, I give it a solid A+ for both of these models, and I expect nothing less from Tahara built 4Runners. The other thing to keep in mind in terms of engineering, this is an important one for me anyway. So I've spoken to a chief engineer, both chief engineers. So there is a Japanese chief engineer in charge of the Land Cruiser and also the 4Runner. His name is Moritsu-san, or Mr. Moritsu, and I spent extensive time talking to him back in Japan in January and also last year as well. But also the chief engineer here for Tacoma, which is Sheldon Brown, He also collaborated with Moritsu to work on the 4Runner. So he's not officially a chief engineer for the 4Runners, but he worked extensively and very closely with Moritsu-san to design this. And that's the third point I want to make, is that from B pillar forward, this vehicle, the 4Runner, is identical to the new generation Tacoma in terms of the basic body, the architecture, the powertrain, even the suspension system, identical this way. But the tricky thing is behind the B pillar. From here, they can't use the Tacoma architecture or platform because that's a truck and this is obviously SUV. So we have to obviously try to work with another element of another SUV, and that is the Land Cruiser 250 series. So even though they can't kind of officially say this is Tacoma on that side and Land Cruiser 250 on this side, essentially from my perspective, based on my investigation, that's what this is. So you're kind of getting best of both worlds. You're getting all of the powertrain and the beautiful design of the Tacoma and also great interior design up front, but you're also getting the robust architecture and platform associated with the Land Cruiser 250 series on the back end here. So basically underneath, it's all Land Cruiser 250. Also keep in mind, with the new 4Runner, it's grown so much in size that it has same wheelbase as many other TNGA F platform vehicles, 112 inches wheelbase. Length is actually just a tad longer than Land Cruiser 250 series. So this thing has also grown up in terms of size. That's the fifth point I wanted to point out. So it's kind of interesting now that all these models have been introduced. You might have a hard time deciding which one to buy, but guess what? If you want to buy Land Cruiser 250, but the money is a little bit too much, and you want to buy something that's a little bit more off-road capable, well, the 4Runner is your answer, and you're getting almost 90% of what the Land Cruiser offers in a cheaper format, and I think I might even say in a better looking format. So it's a really amazing value from my perspective. We don't know the price yet for the 4Runner, but if they're going to offer a similar capability and feature as the Land Cruiser, actually more capability in terms of off-roading, but at a lower price point, wow, we got our real winners here. Let's come back to Trail Hunter here. Let me point out a few more things. Sixth thing I want to point out is that on Trail Hunter, we got a nice big cladding for the wheel wells here. It sticks out quite a bit, much like in Tacoma, but in the Limited, it's actually a body colored, also plastic steel. And then we don't have the TRD Pro here right now, but TRD Pro has a gloss black cover here, and that's something a little bit unfortunate because I think that will get scratched up. But really wide stance. We got the same snorkel as we see in the Tacoma. When you actually drive this thing, you can actually hear the engine sound coming through the snorkel, so that's quite an interesting thing. But anyway, the actual snorkel itself is identical to the one in Tacoma. It's also only on the Trail Hunter, so that's something to keep in mind. The eighth thing is that wheels and tires are also identical to Tacoma. Open Country AT from Toyo, very capable. Keep in mind that these tires have the same name as what you might find aftermarket, but they're actually specially designed for these vehicles. So Trail Hunter get this one, and I believe the same tires on the TRD Pro, but of course on a Limited model we have a different one because this is a street use or street oriented. We got a Yokohama Geolander, which is often the same kind of tires that were used before. Up in the front here, let's keep on pointing at more thing. We got a kind of dual panel compared to Tacoma. Tacoma is more of a larger grille and then the smaller slot on the bottom, but we have two distinct grille. I'm not too crazy about it, but actually in person it looks way better than in photos. So believe me, when you finally get to see it, you probably will like it. But it does look a little bit awkward in the photo with a big bump here and a bump here. But you do get 4 rigid fog lamp for Trail Hunter and TRD Pro, and these are color changeable, so you can change from white to yellow. And you get a full light here as well, radar cruise control. And then you see a little bit of a small Trail Hunter logo. The 10th thing I want to point out, on the TRD Pro, you will say TRD Pro. What else can I tell you? 11th thing I want to talk about is the iForce Max on the Trail Hunter and also the TRD Pro. It's all iForce Max, 326 horsepower, 465 pound-foot of torque, same as Tacoma, and for that matter, same as Land Cruiser 250 as well. And we haven't driven these vehicles, so we can't even talk about that yet. but it's going to be amazing based on my prediction. Great power, great torque, all happening at a very low RPM, and therefore it's going to be just an amazing drive. That's my prediction anyway. We won't be able to drive it until the fall sometime, and I can't wait to drive it. On the Trail Hunter, we have the rock slider, so it's not a running board, you can't really step on it, but it's great for protecting underneath through the rocks and so forth. Also, a steel panel on the bottom here for protection. That's also on the TRD Pro. You don't get that on the Limited. So that's the 12th thing. 13th thing is on the Limited. And other models, you have this plastic damper or air dam for better aerodynamics. And unfortunately, they look as bad as they look on Tacoma, but you can remove them. Let's take a quick look through on the Limited interior. And this one is the high-end model. So you get electric running board, which is beautiful. It's really useful. I had that on my one of the models I own, which was a 2020 4RUNNER Limited with blackout edition. That one had all that. And then, yeah, so back to the interior. Let me step in quickly here. Some bronze accent, 14-inch display, 12.3 over there. And depending on which model, you might end up with a smaller 8-inch screen, but on all the upper level models, you get a full 14-inch. Software designed by Toyota Connected in the US, based in Texas. And they're super fast, very responsive, based on my experience with other 14-inch display from Toyota. Like I said, stitching, everything looks good. The glove compartment is surprisingly big, and we still get all the knobs. So this is all identical to Tacoma. They didn't bother changing that, which is fine because it's a good design. The engineer was headed by Cal-T Group in Michigan, but they worked very closely with Mr. Moritsu's group in Japan, because Land Cruiser 250, the 4RUNNER, the Tacoma, AJAC, they all share so many components and features that so much of the engineering had to be done both in Japan and the US. And that's perhaps one of the most fascinating thing about this whole generation of Tacomas and 4RUNNERs is that this joint collaboration effort by engineers across the globe. And they have standardized some stuff such as the platform underneath, as you can tell from the identical wheelbase with many other models. And all the suspension bits and pieces have been standardized. Even the powertrain, more or less standardized, because almost all of these vehicles have transitioned over to a 2.4 turbo with or without hybrid, except for the GX, which has a 3.4 liter V6 twin turbo engine. What else can I show you? Just don't forget there's some design elements that's interesting. And it's got the iconic wraparound window. Now don't forget this is more of a cosmetic thing, but from inside you can't see this part. There's an actual material underneath here. But this is reminiscent of the first and second generation 4RUNNER, where they had this wrap up thing. So I really like that design. I also really like the fact that they kept the tail lamp simple and with no lights across. And this looks like a 4RUNNER when you take a look at it. Really, from any angle, it's instantaneously noticeable as a 4RUNNER. I already talked about the rear window. However, the window has gotten a little bit smaller compared to the previous one. But because the windows roll down, that means the wiper blade is recessed on top, which I prefer. We have a full trailer hitch as well. The emblem has moved now, so the 4RUNNER is further down here, either chrome or limited, blackout on the other one. And once again, I pointed this out earlier, but you also get a bit of like a grid here and a grid here. Maybe hard to clean, but looks great. And some of these components have all been designed to make it easier to remove. So I think especially on the TRD Pro and Trail Hunter, some of these plastic components can be swapped out if they get damaged to lower the cost. And in terms of the back seat, these seats also tumble. So it's not necessarily roomier than before, I don't think, because of the space they had to keep for the hybrid system. But it's still quite roomy, plenty of headroom. And this part actually tumbles forward. I'm not gonna do that right now. This seats forward as well, so almost flat over here. And so you get a pretty big space in the back. I can't slide this seat forward or backward anymore like we used to be able to. I really liked about that on the 4RUNNER, but we did lose that. Thankfully, we have electric rear lift, which we didn't have before. This one is the non-hybrid, so the actual capacity is greater and it sits a little bit lower as well. But this is huge. This distance here is way bigger than in the generation of the 4Runner I owned. That was very limited because that was third seat was hiding underneath. And on some models, you can still get third seat, but not all of them. So that's something to keep in mind. And then the last point I want to talk about is the fact that we have more new models. So in addition to the Limited we used to have, we also have a Platinum, which is one above this one. And in addition to TRD Pro, we now have a Trail Hunter. Everything else stays the same. We got the SR5, TRD Off-Road, the TRD Sport. Those models will remain as part of the lineup. But we have additional expanded lineup, huge improvements in terms of everything to do with engineering, manufacturing, and also to do with a basic design. I love the new 4Runner in all of its entity, and I can't wait to drive it. Let me know in the comments below what else you might want to know about the 2025 Toyota 4Runner. And until next time, I'm signing off for now. Thank you.